Joining us now, Congressman, Republican 10th District, Barbara Comstock. Congresswoman, great to have you.
Good morning. Good to be with you, and congratulations on your extension of your time in the morning.
Ever since you came on my show on a regular basis, my ratings have gone up, and everybody wants me. Unbelievable. Right? Unbelievable. They're afraid if they don't pick me up 6 to 10. Here's what they said. What time does Barbara come on? I said 7. They're like, really? Well, we got to pick you up 6 to 10. So you got to come on 7 o'clock next week. John Fredericks. So, Barbara, the Monmouth poll came out. Now, this is the same poll. I grew up there, by the way, in New Jersey, where Monmouth College is. Played them in baseball. They beat me one time in the bottom of the ninth inning. I was the closer. Somebody had a 3-run homer off me to win the game. I hung a slider on an 0-2 pitch and got screamed at for 3 days. Now, they put out a poll, and they said you're down by 10 to Wexton. They also had Hillary winning the election by 6. She lost. What do you make of this?
Well, John, I haven't won 7 elections in 9 years by paying attention to outside polls or Democrat polls. I focus on getting results in my district and working on that. Like you said, in 2016, you remember all the victory dances that were going on the Monday before election. My opponent in that case, the Democrats said they were up by 5. I won by 6. In 2014, when I won by 16, my opponent claimed weeks out from the election he was only down by 1. So I don't pay a lot of attention to that. I just work on, getting a lot of the real results that we've been getting on. And my opponent has made clear she is going to be the resistance. In fact, Jerry Connolly on the primary election night said Congress needs someone to represent the resistance. And I think what Virginia 10 needs is somebody who's going to be focused and laser focused on Virginia 10, which is what I have done as delegate and now as Congresswoman, in every inch of this district. And I think we have a great record where we can bring to people. Obviously, we got to cut through a lot of the noise and the clutter, but historic tax cuts every day are making a difference. You know the stats, and I know you talk about them. The lowest African American employment in years and lowest Hispanic unemployment. The numbers came out yesterday that it's the lowest unemployment or highest employment rates for women in the workplace. And that's what I focus on, and I think the rebuilding of our military is something that's essential for our district and for Virginia, for the entire Commonwealth. And I just had one of my bills signed by the president last week, which was the Project Safe Neighborhoods, which is about community policing for our communities. I worked with sheriffs throughout my entire district, Democrat and Republican sheriffs. And this gives 30% of the money is going to be designated for areas that have high gang activity, so they get into the communities and really cut down on that. And so police chiefs and sheriffs were excited to have the president sign that and know that we are going to crack down on this gang problem. And so those are the kind of issues that I've worked on. Another issue that I'm very passionate about and I'm proud we've gotten done this year is National Institutes for Health funding. For the 3rd year in a row, we've increased funding since I've been in Congress, particularly for things like Alzheimer's, cancer research, diabetes. And the more we provide research money for those diseases, that is not only a lifesaver, which is the first and foremost important part, but it is going to reduce our health care costs when we have better treatments and cures. The president signed the Right to Try legislation this year, which is going to give people with fatal and rare diseases quicker access to drugs that are in development but might not get to market before someone facing a fatal diagnosis is having to deal with that. So, these are a lot of the common sense things that don't always make it in the news. I know you focus on them, and that's what we go every week all throughout our neighborhoods talking about these issues.
Well, look, these polling numbers are going to come and go, but just to remind our audience of a couple of things. And by the way, I did bet against you in 2016. I lost, so I'm done with that. I'm not stupid. I might be stubborn, Barbara, but I'm not dumb. In 2016, Luann Bennett had a poll saying she was up 5, which is why I thought she was going to win. You beat her by 6. That's an 11-point difference. In 2014, Two-Faced Faust said he had a poll that showed him down by 1 in the closing weeks. You creamed him by 16. You annihilated him. So these are just some of the examples. Also, there is a history of Jennifer Wexton underperforming, and I have mentioned this, and this is no dig on her, but she has underperformed a number of times. Let me just give you one example. You probably have these. In the last time she ran, State Senator Mark Herring N. Northam received 67% in Wexton's own Senate district, but Wexton only received 52% in 2014 special and 56% in 2015 reelect. So she's consistently underperformed everybody else. I think this is going to be a very close race, no question. All right, let's get into some of the big issues of the day. Justice Kennedy retiring. I understand from our previous conversations, I believe yourself and your family and the justice are neighbors, right?
Yes. He lives across the street, and really great family, great couple. Justice Kennedy and his wife, Mary, and they've been wonderful neighbors to us. We really commend his service for 30 years on the Supreme Court, 43 years in the federal court, and I think he is a wonderful Renaissance man. He's not just a brilliant justice, but he is somebody who's very involved in the arts and history, and you bring up a topic, and he knows all kinds of topics, and about history and battles, and he's great on Reagan War because he was a lawyer for President Reagan when he was out in California. So
right.
It's been wonderful to get to know him. And just to give you an example of what a great neighbor he is, last Thanksgiving, my parents lived with me half the year, so my mom was here getting ready for Thanksgiving, and my dad, who has a bit of a heart condition but is 83 and going strong right now, but he had an attack that day. She had to call the ambulance, and while the ambulance is outside, Justice Kennedy comes over to see if there's anything he can do, and my mom had things in the oven, and so he came into the house, took care of the things in the oven. He called me. I was actually about to go on CNN, and I see his name pop up on my phone, and so of course I picked it up, and he said, "Don't worry, your dad's okay. I'm in your kitchen." And he's on the way to the hospital, but I'm in the kitchen finishing up the pumpkin bread, and so he's a great neighbor too, and this lovely family, and I know he has a lot of grandchildren, so he's going to get to enjoy time with Mary and the grandchildren and his children, and they still have senior status, and they still play a role too in the system.
That is a great story. Congresswoman Barbara Comstock, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Do you believe the president should make wishes for the next Chief Justice known? And do you think that the Senate should vote on it prior to the midterms? Why or why not?
Yes, and I should point out, because, when these things come up, everyone starts calling my office. I am in the House. I don't have a vote on this. So this is not, this is a Senate role, the advice and consent of the Senate. But I do expect, as both Senator McConnell, Leader McConnell has said, that they're going to, and as the President has said, they've gone through, from the last Supreme Court nomination, they have a list of very qualified, highly qualified men and women, a diverse group across the country. I think they will be able to pick from that fairly quickly and move forward on it, and I expect they will. But I think you've seen already from the Democrats they're going to oppose whoever it is.
It doesn't matter. They're going to oppose it. They're going to try to block it.
I feel sorry for the person who it's going to be, because I know Justice Bork, the late Justice Bork, his family is in my neighborhood also, and I know what they went through. Miguel Estrada is a good friend, and I do feel for these jurists who are brilliant and go through all this, and they're going to call the balls and strikes, and that's what they are taught. Most of these people who are contenders are already judges, and I trust that that'll handle that. But that is on the Senate side,
Yes, on the Senate side, and
my opponent and others are already talking about it. But they need to understand the role is, the senators are going to decide this.
Well, the other thing is, I know both of us know the history, and of course the hearings for nominee Robert Bork were horrific, no question about it. What they put him through was unconscionable, but a lot of that was on the Reagan administration. They were caught by surprise by it. They didn't pre-position it, in my judgment. But, we went through the Clarence Thomas thing and what he went through, and I remember him saying on the panel in the Senate, I never forget him saying, would you do this again? And he said, no, I would rather take a bullet in the chest than put my family through what they've been through. So a lot of this stuff's nasty, but look, in 2010, President Obama chose, 6 months before the midterm, President Obama chose Justice Kagan, now Justice, as his nominee, and she was confirmed by a democratically controlled Senate in August of 2010 before the midterms. And, of course, the Democrats got shellacked in those midterms. And Mark Warner, who said it should be not voted on until January, Mark Warner, one of the senators who voted in August for Kagan. So, if it was okay in 2010, it's got to be okay in 2018. Let's get to Goodlet 2.
Let me give you an example of how petty this can get. My opponent in my congressional race, she was one of the 11 people, only 11 far-left people, who opposed the naming of the George Mason Law School when they renamed it for Justice Scalia after he passed away. There was a $30 million gift that went to scholarships and to professors and for kids who might not be able to get to law school. And she wanted to turn that away, and she opposed the renaming. And the renaming was something that was supported by Justice Elena Kagan, and of course it was supported by Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was such a good friend of Justice Scalia. The Washington Post editorial board supported it. The George Mason faculty supported it. But this is how petty and partisan people want to get on something that really they had, no role in. But, this is how this has gotten so partisan. And I think people are sick of that kind of partisanship. They want us to work on results and support things that get, scholarships for young people who can go to a great university like George Mason and a great law school. And, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if she had something named after her, Justice Scalia would have been the first person to be there cheering that on. And that's the kind of friendship that I think we need to have more of as we work on these issues. You're going to differ on things, but we've got to come together and get results for our constituents.
Yeah, I mean, the Wexton, your opponent, Jennifer Wexton, started opposing the naming of the law school for Scalia and turning down the $30 million that help kids get into law school that don't have the money. I mean, you just can't get more radical than that. But that's what happens when you're beholden to groups for money and other things, like apparently in this instance Wexton is. That made no sense to me whatsoever. We're out of time for this segment. I got to just get 30 seconds because I got to get out. You're in support of the Goodlet 2 bill. True or false? Goodlet 2.
Yes, I did vote in favor of that, and I know you talked with Rob Whitman about both of the bills, and I'm hopeful that we will still move forward. Particularly, I think we will take up the Senate bill to get a solution on the kids at the border. I've already co-sponsored one of those, but I do think we can still get a compromise. I know Chairman Goodlatte wants to go back to work on that. We need to get results on this. Some people, partisans on the left and right, want to have an issue. I think we need to get solutions for people here. And Goodlatte, too, had not only the border wall authorization, but full appropriations and funding for it, as well as a DACA solution. We also ended the lottery system and did make it more economically based. So I think we can find a mid-solution there, and I hope we will.
All right, I'm out of time. I have to go. I want to thank Congresswoman Barbara Comstock for being with us. More information, go to barbaracomstock.com. And I bet against Barbara winning in 2016. I got my keister handed to me. I'm not doing it again.